most people think that when you're in that early stage scrambling around in your business, we think about that as if, in fact, we're still a level 1 business. A level 1 business is actively out there selling your product or service. Once you start selling your product or service, you're in what we call early stage level 2, which I'll go through early, middle, and advanced stage in a moment. So some of you say, I'm just level 1, but you've been doing your business actively for a while. If you've been doing your business, you've been generating sales, you've been supporting yourself, you are by definition no longer level 1, correct? You are by definition somewhere in the level 2 part of the spectrum, somewhere in there. Level 2 business, got the control back but no freedom. Level 3 business, you've got the freedom and the control that you're looking for. Okay, so our first case study that I want to touch base on here is with Morgan. This is Morgan, one of the former Maui advisors. Morgan's a really neat man. When he first got started in business, he had graduated from college up in Oregon. He went to Lewis and Clark College and played football out there. He was working in a place called Stanish's Burger Joint as a short order cook with a dream of starting a business. And the business he wanted to start was actually in the mortgage industry. And the problem was that he didn't have the funding for that. He actually met this guy right next to him. You'll see him up here. This is actually Doug McCabe. Doug was about 10, 15 years older, had already been in the business world. And Doug said, look, I'll put up the capital, and I'll be on your advisory board, but we're going to own this business 50-50. Who thinks that's a fair way to do that? Absolutely. Morgan put in the time, the passion, the creativity. And over the course of the first year and a half, they successfully opened up their first branch. This is Morgan Financial first branch. Over the course of the next 2 years, they were able to open up a second branch. And write this down. Write this down. 2 is easy. It's the third that tests out your systems and team and controls. 2 is easy. It's the third that tests out your systems, team, and controls. Took him a total of 4 years to get 2 offices working really well, profitably for himself. Why is 2 easy, but 3, 4, 5 is hard? Why is 2 easy? You can spread yourself between 2 locations. But the moment you go to that third or that fourth location, there becomes a physically very difficult for you to do that. Or for those who don't have physical locations, the moment you're trying to scale past a certain point that you have no more direct span of control for the day-to-day operations, that's the real first hurdle that most businesses needed to deal with. So in his case, 4 years to do it, and it was interesting. His mentor, Doug, came to him and said, Morgan, are you finally ready to listen? How many of you know that sometimes when you have young entrepreneurs that they can't hear it from you sometimes? You guys ever had those experiences, right? And so Doug finally said, look, 4 years, you've opened up 2 locations. Yes, we've recouped our startup capital. Yes, we're both making money here, but this is nowhere near what you and I both wanted to have happen here. Are you finally ready to listen? And I'm a big believer that if you're open to it, you'll find people in your business life that come into your life at the right time to share what you need to hear. Over the next 4 years, they opened up their third, their fourth, their fifth, their sixth, their seventh. They actually went up to 200 offices, 212 offices in 11 different states. First 4 years, 2 offices. Morgan very much doing it all himself, doing it himself. Next 4 years, they scaled to over 200 offices, 212 to be exact. What was the difference? The difference was finally getting it out of his own way around that, listening to the input of other people outside. And you can't see it for yourself. Why? Because we're too close to it. We need someone from the outside who can, from that perspective, from the outside looking in, can give you the input that you're just so mired in the day-to-day that you just don't see for yourself. So going from 1 to 2, not a problem. You can do that through working harder. But going from 2 to 3 or 2 to 5 or 2 to 7, hard work is not going to get you that. It's going to require that you do it categorically different from that. And kind of going forward from this, there are 4 myths of being a business owner. Let's touch on all 4 of these here. The first myth is one that's really quite prevalent. It says it's too risky. As compared to what, right? Oh, the business could fail, right? Generally, this is said by those people who are not business owners. They are what? Employees, oftentimes your family members. They want to protect you, they want to keep you safe, but they're going to tell you it's too risky, right? As if there's a corporation out there that if you had that job, you'll never get fired. Good friend of mine, 20 years with a Fortune 500 company, they let her go. They let her go. Why? Because they could replace her with someone earning half her salary. Anyone here know someone that's ever had that happen to them? That's the way of the world. Too risky, you know. You know, the average business owner, you hear about how they fail. It's not true at all. That the average business owner has about a 50 to 60% success rate when measured by still in business 4 years or later after the launch, according to government and academic studies. 50 to 60% success rate. You don't hear that. You hear it differently. Oh, it's the riskiest thing you can do. Just ask yourself, compared to what? Second myth, it will consume your life. And this one has a grain of truth to it. It will consume your life depending how you play your life. How many of you know someone who's consumed by their job? How many of you know someone who's like unemployed and consumed with just lying on the couch? Some people are just do their business that way. It will consume your life if you allow it to. If you build it different and better, it doesn't have to consume your life. Certainly it's going to take a lot of heart and soul early on and through the middle stages. But how many of you would rather put in that heart and soul over 3, 5, 10, 12 years to be done financially forever versus 40 years and still not done? So I'll put that out there. Number 3, this is the myth of control. Write that one down here, the myth of control. Control is a trap. The more control you have in your business, the more you need to be there personally to do what? To exercise that control. To exercise that control. Control is a trap. So we're going to talk here about how can you build the business so the business is in control, not you, the owner. And then finally, the 4th myth is it takes lots of money to build and scale a company. And this one is another one that's pure and complete crap. Does it take money? Sometimes it does. Does it have to be your money? Absolutely not. How many people in this room, by the way, started a business with less than $10,000 of initial startup capital? Keep your hands up. Look around. Probably 95% of you did that. Study done by Wells Fargo. And they did a study a number of years back. And they found that 70% of business owners out there had started their business with less than $10,000 of startup capital. Now, those of you that require more capital for physical assets, intense website programming, or I've got a client who needed a physical machinery for his business, yeah, you might need it. But there are sources of capital that are out there, whether it be SBA financing, Love Money, other sources for that, bootstrapping for many businesses in there. And I'll speak to this one personally. When I got started with that business with Peter, it required me to come up with $7,600 as my half of the upfront capital to launch that business. And part of me thought, gosh, this is really tough. I didn't have the money, by the way. I didn't. I was just finished up my degree in college. I was on the 9-year plan. I was playing sports. We'd leave for a year or two, come back for another quarter. My last quarter at UC San Diego, to finish up my degree, because I had enough money for one last quarter, I took 29 units to finish up that degree. I had to get special permission twice to keep adding classes, as they told me I wouldn't graduate without it. So either do that or not get the degree. And Peter, he got to write the check. He had the money. And what would the average person have done if they said, look, I don't have the $7,600, what would the average person have done? Said, Peter, I can't be your partner. Maybe I could be your employee. Just share with you. Write the question down if you would. I'll come back to that. So, with that, that was the company. I shared with you the numbers before, but when we finally exited that was a business that was worth $10+ million 7.5 years later. What would it have cost me if I chose to be his employee and not his partner? Literally millions of dollars. Literally millions of dollars. What would have been the reason why I would have come up with that? Because I was scared. Let me ask you this as a question. Imagine for a moment you needed to come up with 10 grand to start a business and pretend like you didn't have it. Right? So if it's in your account, we're just going to hold the account for just 2 minutes. How could you raise the capital? Where could you get that? If you know that 7, 8, 10 years later, that business you're going to be able to exit and it was worth $5, $10 million or more, how many of you could come up with that capital? Hold your hands up if you think you could come up with it. Question, if your hand's not up right now, why isn't it? You tell me, what other asset could you take $10,000 in 10 years' time and build a $10 million asset? There's no other asset with that. Some people say, I could do it with real estate. Sure, if you deal with your real estate as if it was a business, but not just by itself. That's what we're talking about here. So where could you come up with capital? You tell me. Where could you come up with the capital? Shout it out. It's too much sitting here. I need some talking. Friends and family, sell a car. Credit cards, what else do we have? Garage sale. SBA loan. Second loan, a mortgage, a HELOC. These are all great ideas. I didn't have $7,600. I actually had to use 2 credit cards because I didn't have enough limit on 1 credit card to do it, which is kind of embarrassing to say, but at that time in my life I didn't. And actually I've kept, this has changed banks 3 times, but this is the original credit card that I actually put it on. I don't use it too much anymore because it doesn't give me points. This one gives me miles. How many of you like miles, right? So if I'm going to spend the money anyways, I prefer the miles. But I still keep this one here, kind of more nostalgic now. But I think back then it was the one I got while I was in college. You know, they throw all those free things for offers for credit cards when you're in college. You know, you have no revenue or whatever. They just want to hook you, right? But $7,600 won a credit card, and from that point we bootstrap. We use the revenue from the business to pay for that business's growth. Pardon me for 1 second here. Yet they're going to tell you it takes lots of money to do that. And I'll share with you, the average person, they don't get it. They just don't get it. So here's a quick example of what Rob Mayberry I shared with you before. It took him 8 years in his first company he built to hit $1 million net profit. There's certain landmarks in your company. For example, any of you have software types of companies in the room here? So for you, one of the key landmarks is the $1 million of recurring revenue mark. That's a key metric for you. That when you hit that, your company valuation is actually different from a company that doesn't hit that, if that's your model. I'll share with you one of our clients that hit it about 1.5 years ago, and she was so thrilled with that. But for the average business, one milestone, not early, one later milestone for you to set for yourself should be that $1 million net profit milestone. And you know what? If you don't hit it, that's okay, but it's a good one to shoot for. It took him 8 years in his business to do it before he sold the company. The second business he built took him 18 months to do it. Why was he able to do it so much faster the second time? Yeah, he already knows the steps along the way. He already knows the directions to go through that roadmap. He already knows those things. The good thing about it is the first time is difficult. The second time is not nearly as hard, and the third time and beyond becomes easier and easier. The average business owner, how they build their business, they build the traditional ways around you, and they build that business for control. And anytime you build a business for control here at level 2 or level 1, if you think about it, control is a trap that kind of holds you in the business, because the more control you have, the more you need to be there to exercise it. Instead, if you think about the level 3 roadmap, it says, okay, how do I build it so it's systems reliant, has the team in place, and has control so that the business is scalable? Let's look at the two side by side for a moment. When you build the business around you, and you build that business for control, think about it this way. If this is you in the business, if you want to do more revenue, to do more sales, to create more profit, what do you need to do? Work harder. So if this is how you normally work, this is you in the business. And if you want to earn more money, you got to go faster, faster, faster. And the faster you go, you reach a point in time, what? That you can't run any faster. What's more, the more you start doing this, you start to actually create your company to be addicted to you being there. Because everyone's used to it. You're always there. You actually make it harder for the business to operate without you there. Because you built this big trench that traps you inside the company. Who's ever seen that happen with a business? Instead of the level 3 version of doing that says, okay, I'm not going to build this business around me. I'm going to build this business using systems, reliable processes and procedures that help things happen and tools to happen consistently well. Controls. Controls are just special systems that are used to design to help you make sure that you can see that your team used the systems the right way at the right time. And then finally, the team. All 3 of these building blocks are what give you a company that now is scalable. If you just build on team, what's wrong with just building on team? It's like a one-legged stool. If everything is perfectly in alignment, you're okay. But how many of you have ever had employee situations where everything stayed perfectly in alignment in their business and their personal lives? It just doesn't happen, right? A spouse gets relocated, a health issue. They want to seek enlightenment on a hillside in the Himalayas. I don't know what it is, right? Something comes up to jar that. So you need the 2 other legs, because it's the 3 legs of the stool, not just the team, but the systems and the controls that allow you to build a company that you can start to scale. It's a very different way of doing that. And if you're level 2, you put who at the middle here? You, the business owner. If you want to build a level 3 business, instead you want to put your business at the center so that as you build this, you actually have space where you can scale and go beyond just you. It's a very different methodology. I'll come into the nuts and bolts of it throughout the day, but you've got to get that in the core to see that difference here. By the way, if you do it the traditional way, can you build a successful business that generates good revenue if you do it the traditional way? Absolutely you can. Sure you can. You can build a business that might generate a couple $100,000 or even more of net profit per year. You can do that. But you will be working awful what? Awful hard. And those two words go together, I think, sometimes. Awful hard. Not that you won't have to work to have a level 3 business, but you reach a point where you're no longer required to be there. You reach that point. If you do it the conventional way, there's still 3 pitfalls you're going to have to deal with. Number 1 pitfall says it's going to put a cap on your business success. Why? At some point, you just can't run any faster. You're going around as fast as you can go. It's going to put a cap to it. You can't generate more business because you're the main if you're the main person doing sales or you're the main person doing fulfillment of the product or service, you reach a capacity issue one way or the other. You become your own limiting factor in the business. Second pitfall says everyone's at risk. You know, one of the most quieting questions you can ask a room full of business owners, which is this: what happens to your business if you got hit by a bus tomorrow? Or to make it even harder on it, what happens if tomorrow you became incapacitated? How many of you recognize that your business 30, 60, 90, 120 days later is going to take a big hit? Absolutely. So you're not just putting you at risk. Who else are you putting at risk? Your family, your employees, your customers, your vendors. I mean, you're putting a lot of people at jeopardy for that. You know, what's really risky is not a level 3 business. It's a level 2 business is risky. The final thing is, the more successful you become here, running around, doing all the work, the business around you, the more it traps you inside that business. And I used to think about what's a way to describe that. And we call this, by the way, the self-employment trap. When you have this business that traps you inside of that company, you hit that natural growth point that you can't go beyond unless you scale beyond you. We call it the self-employment trap. And the way I want you to think about it is, how many of you have ever been to like a health club before, right? And in the health club, they have these pieces of equipment. They have weights and other things. But they also have these things called treadmills. And if you can imagine, this is a treadmill where it's coming down here. The average business owner gets on that treadmill, and they start doing their business. And as a startup, they're doing lots of it themselves, but they have low overhead, not a big deal. And then they take that leap of faith and they make their first key higher, turning up that treadmill a little bit faster. They've got to work harder. Their overhead's higher, right? And then they take on that client. They don't quite have enough capacity, but they're going to work longer hours to get it done because the revenue's really good. And then their family starts saying, hey, we want to do this trip, or these other things are going on. Their significant other says, honey, you're doing great. Keep working, right? And they have a couple issues with staffing, and they're working harder. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, the way off this treadmill is to turn it up faster, work harder. What happens at any point in time if I stop running? Go flying off the back of it into the wall. Pardon me. It's hard being a level 2 business owner, isn't it? The level 3 person looks over at the person on that treadmill, and they just shake their head. Write this down. The more you do for your business, the more you have to keep doing. The more you do, the more you have to keep doing. But the opposite is true. The more you get your business to do, the more it frees you up to build and grow the business as a business. I was doing a conference call recently, I think about 2 or 3 days ago, and I asked the people on that conference call, I said, look, if you were to create a list of those tasks that only you can do for the business, what would it look like? We ask this of every new consulting client. They create their list of things that only they, the business owner, can do. And I would tell you that 90% of the items that are on that list, guess what? Some other business has got someone other than the owner doing. whether it's purchasing or looking over the financials, helping with hiring, fulfilling on the product or service. Sometimes it's clerical things they put on there. That's how tight they are with the control. Letting go of the, you pry my cold, tired fingers is about the only way you're going to get my fingers off of there. And they pay a price for it. There's very little in your business that, given enough time and the right systems, control, and team, that you cannot replace yourself in your business. Very little. So it's not about just running faster. It's about building a business, not a job. How do you build a business that has more than just you? A job says, run faster, work harder, do more. A business says, do fewer things better. Leverage systems, team, and controls to get more things accomplished for the business. A job says, take care of today's urgencies. A business says, balance today with investing for the future of this company. It's got to make sense cash flow-wise. It's got to have other intelligent things we've looked at, but we can build beyond just today. So how do you create this, the time to do this? One question, I want to kind of start here. I want to share with you quickly here 2 simple techniques to generate some more time in your business. I'm hoping that you find them very useful. I'm going to do more on this after lunch, but I know a lot of people say, David, I'm just so busy. I'm so mired in doing the job of my business. How do I build and create the business of the business? So the first one we're going to do here right now, write it down here. It's called an upfront agreement. Some of you have heard me do this in the negotiation context, but let's do it here in a different context. How many of you in your company, you're still the primary point person for the sales and marketing function in your company? Great. And if you're not, use this idea perhaps with the staff that works for you. Have you ever had the case where you're talking with a new customer, prospective customer, I should say, and they say, this sounds great, I'll think about it and get back to you? Who's ever had to think about it? And 90+% of those think it overs, what do they turn out to be? A waste of time. Yet you follow up with them. If only there was a way that you could get them to give you a yes or a no up front. And there is. It's called an upfront agreement. And here's what it sounds like. So, just saying, what types of businesses we have here? I know we have some real estate companies. We have some engineering firms. We have some professional services. What other businesses we have? Raise your hand. I'll call you a shout out. We got it's a hospitality business for a small kind of resort here. Home for the elderly. Branding and marketing company. Law firm. What else we got? Yes. Medical practice. Construction. Okay. Last one. We'll use the last one for right now, and then I'll also give you a kind of more of a professional services example. We use the construction and we'll use the law firm. Those are 2 pretty big different ones. We'll use both. So in the construction world, who is the construction? Was that? Okay, and it's Russ. Okay. And Russ, handyman side of things, or doing large types of rebuilds on buildings to, what is the business like? Commercial work. Tenant improvements for commercial spaces. Shopping mall has a new tenant come in, you're going to basically do the rebuild and make the store floor plan what they want. That type of thing? Okay. Office or mostly? Okay. Got it. Okay. And I want to use your example. So imagine, and you're probably then dealing with not just, are you dealing with a landlord, or are you dealing with the business manager themselves that manages the physical location? Got it. So he works, his customer is the owner of the business that wants the tenant improvement for that physical office space. Great. So Pete, as we talk together and I go through what it is that you're looking for our company to do in terms of tenant improvements in here, if what we talk through clearly is not a fit for you, are you okay telling me it's not a fit? Great. So always start with asking them, are they okay telling you no first? On the other hand, as we talk through this, if it's clear to you that we are a good fit to do the tenant improvements, are you okay letting me know that too at the end here of our conversation? Wonderful. I'm going to do the same thing. If I don't think that we can give you the right tenant improvements at the price and value that you need, I'll let you know that you're not a good fit for us. On the other hand, if I do believe we can give you the value you're looking for us to deliver, I'll let you know that too at the end. Now, kind of think about it this way here. If we both feel it's a good, not a fit, we don't take any further. Only if we both tick off an A that this is something that's definitely going to work for both of us, do we take that next step. You know what? I'm going to ask for one thing, though. I'm going to ask that you let me know at the end here, either no, it's not a fit, F, or yes, it is a fit, A. And if you give me a B, C, or D, I'll be respectful. I'm going to call that an F. So I'm just going to ask you to tell me, black and white, yes, we should work together, or no, we shouldn't. I'll tell you, yes, we should work together, or no, we shouldn't. I'm just going to ask for that same courtesy in return. Is that fair? Great. So what we've just agreed to, and that languaging of that same courtesy. Now, I gave a much more concrete example here, because in the building trades, that would be much more appropriate languaging. In a professional practice, it would sound a little bit different. Actually, we have a couple law firms that we work with. One of them, the Sullivan Law Group in the East Coast, they do estate planning. And so he recently tightened up his conversations with him and his other attorneys that do the initial consultation to do estate planning as a package for their prospective clients. And it'll sound something like this, Mrs. Johnson, as we go through this here, I'll give you my very best legal input. I'll look at your situation specific to you. I'm simply going to ask at the end one question. Do you feel that from all we've gone through, that the Sullivan Law Group, or in this case your own law firm, is the right place for you to have this work done? And I'm going to ask at the end, you can tell me no, and that's perfectly okay. I'm hoping that the answer is yes. On the same token, as we go through, if I don't think we can meet your needs, I'll let you know that. I'll tell you that we're not the right choice for you, the law firm for you. All I'm going to ask at the end here is we both let each other know clearly where we stand. Are you willing to play by those ground rules? Is that a reasonable way for us to proceed? Great. It's a simple question. All you're asking for in your upfront agreement is it's a decision to give you a decision at the end. Who thinks that cuts through all the BS? It's not that complicated, is it? It's really quite useful. The second strategy that I would share with you is, how many of you have a to-do list? How many have a to-do list that goes like 4 pages long? I recommend that you keep a stop-doing list. It's a little bit different than that. A stop-doing list says, these are the things that I'm agreeing that for a defined period of time, I'm going to just take off the table. With that stop-doing list, you're going to look at doing 4 things. You're going to look at how can you delete it. It should never be done by anybody. How could you, bless you, delegate it? How could you get somebody else who would be appropriate for them to do? The third D says, how could you delay it? Maybe it has to be done, and it has to be done by you, but maybe it shouldn't be done this week, this month, this quarter. Maybe it should be delayed down the road. Sometimes it's not about what, it's about when you choose to do it. The final one here is the one that I put a little star by, because this is the most powerful one. It says, design it out. How many of you have certain types of reoccurring low-value work that happens over and over and over again in your business? Sure. How can you design it so it doesn't come up to begin with? Here's a quick example. Every time you have a new client, there's probably 5 questions you get from that new client every single time. I'll share with you for a physicians group that we work with. So they do surgery. They do both pain management and some elective surgeries. They're mostly private pay for what they do. And so preoperative instructions. Can you imagine if you're a doctor doing surgery, how many times you say the same things over and over and over again? So what this doctor did, a really nice gentleman, his name's Dr. Gurpreet Padda, and he designed, with our input, a DVD that goes through all the preoperative things. So it's about a 20 or 30-minute DVD. And if you're a patient and you're going through and watching the doctor explain in great detail all the details of the procedures and so forth, how many of you think that you're actually going to feel that you got a higher value interaction than the 60-second spiel that they give you otherwise, right? Because they're so busy with all these different ways. And then he comes in and a nurse or somebody else will ask if there are any questions that there are. They get a better result, happier client. What happens to the cost of that? Once you factor in the cost to produce that, the cost dramatically goes down to have someone else do that. It's an example of design it out. Another example of design it out, how many of you have ever been to a website and used an FAQ or discussion forum to get your answer? So getting your clients to peer support or self-serve themselves would be an example of designing it out. Anyone here ever bought a computer in the last 5 years? Should be everyone's hands. The number one customer service issue from a computer like Dell, what's the number one customer service issue initially? Yeah, I just bought this computer. It doesn't work. User errors. And who's in the IT field? You have funny names for that, right? They kind of make fun of the rest of us that don't know about computers and stuff like that. But essentially, what Dell would do, and you get this, no user manual anymore, correct? Because no one reads the user manual. They might give you a DVD or a CD-ROM, but generally those have a link to a website or something like that. Generally, what do they give you, though? It's a fold-out that's a what? It's a fold-out poster that shows in 5 images exactly how to set it up. Plus, they changed the plug so that it only plugs in the correct way. They've designed out user error for the setup of a computer, and that works most times. These are good examples with designing it out. So how do you keep it from coming up with to begin with? So all of you take a moment here. What's a couple items? Write down that are going to go on your stop doing list, if you would. Write 2 or 3 items that should go on your stop doing list. Maybe low value email. Maybe there's certain types of customer emails or phone calls that you shouldn't take anymore. Maybe there are certain types of meetings that you should no longer have anymore. Certain activities that you should delegate to somebody else. Take a moment and write a couple down. Give you about another minute here, then we'll get started here again. Write down what those ideas you have or those items on your stop doing list. And I'm going to challenge you. It's easy to add stuff to your to-do list. See if you can't every week, every month, add something else to your stop doing list for your business. Both individually, you, and also the business as a business. It's a really powerful way of looking at your company. Okay, another 20 seconds to finish that up. Again, we're looking for everyone here to have a couple of items, just so you got that list started. All right. So good stuff so far this morning? Yes? Great. Now, this is different from what you're getting from other sources. I get it. I get it. Why don't more business owners do this? Why don't? Because it's not even something they're aware that they should be doing, let alone how to do that. And it's not typically what someone as a business owner is taught to do. They're taught or trained by just doing the business. They're good at operating the job of that business versus building and designing that business as a business. It's interesting. Whenever we work with a new client, we always think about things in threes. You'll see that when I teach today. We do the same thing throughout the company and the program. We work with clients, and every quarter they have 3 specific strategic focuses for their business every quarter. Now, usually as a business owner, do we want to do more or less? More. We want to keep adding more. We love to add, hate to subtract. We just want to keep adding. We love it. And generally what we'll say for a business owner is we let them have 3 focuses for the quarter. Why wouldn't we let them have 4 or 7 or 10? If you have 4 number 1 or 5 or 10 number 1 focuses, how many priorities do you really have functionally? None. So we limit them to 3. And I will tell you this, that every new client we end up bringing on, one of the core focuses for the first quarter we work together is how to upgrade that business owner's personal use of time. Why? Because if you can't create more time, not to say that you'll work less, but that you can upgrade the use, then all these other things that you want, the marketing strategies that you've got, the operational strategies, they won't have time to implement it. So as a business owner, I would share with you, it is totally possible. A couple quick examples for it. One of the guys we used to work with is named Stephen Janes. They have a company that resold Dell servers and computers, IT equipment online. They sell about $10 million actually this last year per year of used Dell equipment. And that's great. That's about 40% growth from where they originally started 3 years ago. And Janes was their main person on the marketing sales side, yet he was spending about 90% of his time as the business partner on the operational warehouse side. What's wrong with that picture? Yeah, it cost him. I mean, when he was inside that warehouse, it was costing them hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of revenue. Took them about 12, 14 months to get him out of 90% of the operational part of that warehouse side. They grew from $6 to $10 million in revenue over the intervening about 1.5 years, 2 years after that. Makes a big difference. I asked the question before about how many of you know if you had more time you could grow your business, and the majority of you got that. Let's ask it this way. Why don't more business owners do that? Because they know to do it. They might even know how to do that, but they say, I don't have the discipline to do that. How many of you have ever heard that word, the discipline to do your time the right way? I get it. But the problem is most of us think of discipline as kind of like willpower. And write this down. Willpower will win a sprint, but lose a marathon. Willpower will win a sprint, but it will always lose a marathon. You can have willpower for a day, for a week, maybe even a month. but pretty soon it's going to waver and weaken. Discipline is not about willpower. Discipline is about two things. Discipline is about environment and accountability. Discipline is about environment and accountability. Willpower will win a race, a sprint, but it will never win a marathon. You can't gut out 26 miles. You can gut out 100 yards, huffing and puffing and chuffing, right? You might pull a muscle right there at the end, but your momentum will carry you through. You could probably even gut out running a couple of miles, but you're not going to not train and then go run 26 miles unless you're one of those genetic freaks that we all are so envious of. I've got a friend that can do that, and he goes and runs 50 or 100-mile races. Can you imagine that? Yeah, my neighbor in Jackson, Wyoming. Guy's a nut. I mean, for him it's fun to race all, and they pay to do this. It's like $1,000 to go race for 100 miles. Go figure. It's a good business for somebody, test yourself. So environment, think about the environment. Environment's kind of like this. I get comments from people, I'm a pretty darn healthy eater. And at home, I don't eat lots of junk food. Why? What's the easiest way to make sure at home you don't eat lots of junk food? Don't bring it in the house. If my wife brings it in the house and I find it, I throw it away. And then she rebuys it and hides it better. Because if there are Snickers bars in our household, I can have willpower till about 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, whenever time the boys actually fall asleep and conk out. But then I can smell Snickers bars throughout the house. I'm going to eat it because if it's there, it's easy. If it's not in the house, I'm not going to wake up at 2 in the morning and go out to the AM PM to buy a Snickers bar. I'm too embarrassed. I'm tempted, but I'm just too embarrassed, right? So environment says that way. For example, how many of you email is one of your number one challenges in the office? How many of it's phone interruptions? How many is it physical interruptions of customers or staff members who kind of come in and physically interrupt you? So what I find is I take time every week, and suggest you do the same. We do it with our clients, to get into a different environment to make it easier for you to do that focused work that you're going to need to do. Sometimes that could be going to a conference room. For me in Jackson, there's 2 hotels nearby that have really nice lobbies. I go there for 4 or 5 hours and do some work twice a week. I get huge amounts of work done in 3 hours in the lobby of the hotel there in downtown Jackson. Then if I'm in my office, I'm tempted. For me, it's email. It's right there. So environment is one. The second thing for you is accountability. Who do you have in your business life that holds you accountable? It can't be your staff because there's a power imbalance there. It really can't even effectively be your business partner. Or if it's your romantic partner who's also your business partner, that's tough. Why? Because you bring lots of other stuff to that relationship. If Heather were my accountability partner, I would kill her, she would kill me. It just doesn't work. We're great husband and wives. We're lousy accountability partners for each other. So who in your business life? We all need somebody. I mean, I can remember the experience when I first started working with someone to help hold me accountable outside it's amazing. The day I would meet with this person once every week or once every 2 weeks. And what I found was a day or two before I was going to meet with them, I got really busy. Why? Because I wanted to make sure that I did all the things that I committed to doing. I delayed, then did it all. As long as I had those meetings frequently enough, I got a lot of great stuff done. Now, some people say, well, gosh, why should you have that? Why should we need that? Look, if you can do it all in willpower, bless you. I haven't been able to, and most business owners that we work with, the accountability is a pretty important piece. So who is it that in your business life can hold you accountable? Because we all need that accountability. And in the world, there's going to be a lot of these people who are kind of, I call them the naysayers. You can't do that. You can't do that here. You can't do that there. You can't do that in a box with a fox, on a train, in the rain. You just can't do that. We got tired of all the naysayers. So we actually did a contest about 3.5 years ago. How many of you saw it would have been like, it was promoted by some companies like Dun & Bradstreet, Hoover's, Comcast, allbusiness.com. We called it a big business contest. We said, we're going to do a selection of businesses across the United States. We're going to pick 2 grand finalists. We're going to work with them as the Maui Advisor team for 120 days. For 120 days, we're going to take that business owner by the hand, dive into their business, help them redesign their sales, their marketing, their operational, their financial, and also their team systems for that. How many of you would have liked to have won 3.5 years ago? Well, we had 14 semifinalists there in a variety of industries, everything from medical to software to a company that was made wood wear parts for industrial blenders, basically, that made things like that chipped wood and made it smaller through lifestyle companies. The winner for the contest, her name was Jennifer Lyle. She had a software company in Arizona, still has the software company. And she's someone I really admire. She, about 2.5, 3 years prior to that contest, she took a big leap of faith. And she actually bought out her 2 other business partners. She found in the partnership she was doing most of the work, yet she still had 2 other partners that were kind of dragging behind. And she said, David, I noticed that I was starting to do other businesses versus putting all my energy into this one because I was resentful that I was kind of carrying the load in a big way. How many of you have ever had an all-in moment like that? You know, it was all, she had raised several $100,000. She did it. She bought out her partners. It was all on her shoulders. Win or lose, it was all on her shoulders. It's a scary moment. What happened in her business? Within the first 12 months after the contest, she increased her net profit by 77% in 1 year. What's even better, by some simple changes to her business model, she increased what's called her enterprise value, basically the equity in her business, by over $1 million. Who thinks that's a pretty good result? So, but you know what the irony is? The world still says you can't do it. They're still going to say that to you, and they're still going to be the naysayers for that. Whenever I'm working with a new client, it's interesting. We're always working for that point in time where they finally get it, that they don't have to give up their life to have their business. And that's a big difference way of looking at it. I'm going to share an example here. I'll grab 2 chairs here. This is something that was kind of a metaphor that I want you guys to think about. We've been using it in the Maui community now for close to 10 years, and I've had a lot of people comment that it's made a big difference for their life. How many of you have ever seen Indiana Jones part like 11, that scene where there's like that, he's stepping off that cliff to go over and take that leap of faith out there to go save his father, the Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. Who's ever seen that before, right? And this is the best I can do on a budget. So if you can imagine, this is me redesigning that set there. And so this is this great big cliff, and as you get up to the top here, there's a gap. I don't really want to take quite that big of a leap like he did, right? But imagine that across the other side is the business that says, hey, I'm going to actually do a level 3 business. And that commitment that you're going to make it happen on that side, that's a scary commitment to make. Oh gosh, what happens if this? What about that? But. And at this point in time, you've got 3 choices. One choice is you get scared and do what? Turn around and tuck tail and choose the status quo. Have we all seen that the status quo is a valid choice, but there's a price associated with the status quo? From a time perspective, the status quo in your business requires you to put in every bit as many hours as you are today, longer. And how many of you have learned that what's difficult for you to put in today only becomes harder to put in 5 years or 10 years later because you have burnout issues with that? When it's new and different, you're excited about it. It's different than later on. Choice number 2 is you reach this point in time and you freeze. And this is the most dangerous place of all because this is like kind of winds are buffeting up here. And if you can't get yourself to jump and you're stuck here, then turn around and run away. Because it's really uncomfortable to live your life always on the edge, to always live your life as if you're kind of right there on the verge, but scared and staying still. You have one more choice when you're on that point. Even though that because think about it, most of us, the way we live our lives is we inch along. We make little incremental changes. And you reach points in time where you can't inch across anymore. Do I have any rock climbers in the room here? You guys call this going radical, which means to get to the next handhold or foothold, you have to actually let go of the foothold or handhold that you have now. So what's your other choice that you have here at this point? To take that step out there, knowing that you don't know how it's going to turn out. And that's a scary thing to do. Someone corrected me about that. They said, David, it might be scary for the average person, but when you know what you're doing, it's always a calculated risk with that. You always know and feel comfortable with that. So that moment in time, I'll share with you an example for that. This is Tom Santilli. Remember that guy I mentioned before, Stephen James, who had the Dell reseller, the company that's resold Dell equipment? This is his business partner. And he had a business that was generating for him about $1 million net revenue per year with the Dell reselling, and he had about 50 rental houses that he personally managed. He was working 70 or 80-hour weeks when he got a gift from his wife. It was an airline ticket, hotel reservations to a charity event that we were holding in 2006 at a resort in Arizona. Some of you actually were at that event that we did. It was $500 per person. We raised close to $200,000 for charity, for 11 different charities out of that event. And Tom's wife said, "You're going." And it was funny to hear him tell it in retrospect. He told me this 2 years later after that event. He didn't tell me at the time. His own words, he'll put it this way, said, "Oh, gosh, okay. So using the level 3 approach, I've reduced my working hours in half and still make the same income. Only now I don't come into the office until after 10 a.m. and take every Friday off to be with my family." How many of you, more important than the financial success is the time success? I think most business owners, we get started with our business because we want control. We're tired of other people who we don't think are competent telling us what to do. Is that fair to say? I didn't hurt anyone's feeling by saying that. Who would agree that originally that was one of the big reasons you wanted to have control for yourself? Later on, control gets old quickly. 2 or 3 years of having control, and we discover that the price you pay for the control isn't worth it. But then we just don't know what to do to get out of it. Let me jump forward here. Pardon me 1 second. Okay. So the naysayers are still going to be there. Let's go back to that roadmap and go in more detail. So level 1, if you think about the roadmap, first of all, let's kind of look at it this way. The roadmap, I want you to think about it this way. I don't have it with me here. It's actually a written document that actually folds out. Let me just share with you kind of what it looks like. As you think about it, it has what the focus, what the key milestones. So it has what the focus is at every stage along in your business, what the key milestones are for that stage, the things, the landmarks that tell you, are you on pace? It also is going to give you what are the systems that you need to have at this point in time in your business's development. It's going to tell you what are the critical controls that you need at this point. And then finally, it's going to say what are the essential team that you need as well. It's basically a cheat sheet card that lays out the life cycle of your business from launch to exit. Who can imagine that that's pretty useful stuff to know? Let's go back and take a deeper look at that roadmap than we did before, and we'll kind of keep coming back to it for the balance of the day. So level 1, the focus of level 1 is about planning a business out, raising any startup capital that's needed, and actually proving that a business idea can be viable. That somewhere there's a market that exists that would potentially want your product or service. Level 2, we're going to break down into early, middle, and advanced stage. I know it's not imaginative with the language, but it's clear. So an early stage level 2 business is about proving that company is sustainable, which means getting those early what? Sales. So if you said, David, what's the number one focus of an early stage level 2 business, what do you think that it might be? Sell, 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 sell. And then scramble to fulfill on your promises or service, your promises of product or service. Example of an early stage level 2 business. You got some of you here in the room that are at that point. Who here is what you would define as an early stage level 2 business? You're out there doing it, but you're still scrambling to make that business work, right? An example for it. One of the companies we work with is a mobile bottling company. They work in Napa Valley. They have a very high-end 60-plus foot trailer that goes around to wineries. And rather than them having to have their own bottling equipment that they might only use for 2, 3, 4 weeks out of the year, they come and do the bottling for it mobily. And so he's already got himself booked out for most of his business here, and within the next year he'll probably raise the capital to buy a second large trailer of equipment. It's pretty expensive. It's about $800,000 to $1 million of equipment for him to do that. He's now in year 3 of his operations. He's still trying to get his first truck fully utilized. Early stage level 2. He's profitable, but not nearly to the degree just yet. So focus again, can I make a business that's going to survive, be sustainable? Middle stage level 2 says, I'm going to now be focused on building out my core. There are 4 key systems more than any other that make the most difference in your business. Number 1, your system for generating fresh leads. Number 2, your system of lead conversion, to take a fresh lead and convert them into a paying customer or client. Third, fulfilling on your core product or your core service. And number 4, collecting on your receivables. You've got to collect what people owe you. In a nutshell, those are the 4 core minimum requirements. Like the FDA has your minimum daily your recommended daily allowances of vitamin C and vitamin whatever it is, A and all these other ones. Well, this is your minimum for your business. Has to do those 4 things. If you can't find a customer, convert a customer, fulfill for the customer, and collect from the customer, you don't have a business. At the middle stage, you're actually starting to build out this process. Sorry, I'm going back here if I can. On these pillars. You're not going to fully flesh it out, but you're starting to, especially the core ones that I've just described. Example, this is Lainey Vanderway. Her manufacturing company shared about, actually, let's just jump ahead. Let's just do this here. So advanced stage level 2. The focus here is now, the business works really well, but how do we start building the business beyond the owner? Most owners get stuck at middle stage level 2. This is where they stop. The easiest example of this is the doctor who in her office, might be her and 2 partners. If she's not there to see patients, that office could very well just shut down. Yes, she's got people to take the front desk work to be done, scheduling. She's got somebody else who does the insurance billing. Maybe they've outsourced that even. They've got somebody who preps the room so that when the patient goes in there, maybe there's even a nurse that comes in there or a physician's assistant who does the initial temperature and the blood pressure and takes the initial charting information. The doctor comes in at the very end and has that focused 5, 10, 20, 30-minute conversation, depending how in-depth it might be. So they've leveraged the heck out of that doctor, but if she's not there, there is no medical practice for most business owners. They get stuck there. At advanced stage level 2, you say, how do we start to replace those key people with systems, team, and controls in there? Example for that, I've used the law firm before. So here's an attorney dentist that used to be just him producing all the legal work. Now he's got 2 paralegals and 2 other associate attorneys in his office. And what they've done is they've created a standardized offering of the estate planning that they work and do. They've got a defined marketing strategy that is primarily done through educational workshops that they give that generate leads for them to do. And they're getting in that transition between middle stage and advanced stage, and it's starting to get pretty exciting for them because he's starting to see more time for him to leverage other people and other ideas that he's got. The final part in time is level 3. And level 3 is about executing on whatever your strategy is, your exit strategy is. And there are 3 main exit strategies, right? Sell, scale the company larger, or to transition into owning it passively. If you choose to do any one of those 3 strategies, when's the time to think about it? Right there when you're already at level 3? No, to design that in, ideally at the beginning, but at the very minimum, somewhere around middle stage or advanced stage level 2, you need to start seeing what's the end state that you're trying to get to. You know, as a middle stage level 2 business owner, you might be 5 years away from that end game. Oh, there's one more exit strategy I didn't mention, but passing your business on as a legacy to your heirs, that's a very viable one as well. How many of you want to one day sell your company? Okay, about 20% of you. How many of you one day want to own your business passively? I'm going to guess this is probably the largest number, about 70% of you. How many of you want to scale it and keep actively participating but grow that company much larger? Yep, generally it tends to trend a little bit younger folks. I don't know why that is. Ambitious. I used to want to build $100 million company, and then I had my kids, and I said, you know what, at 5, 10, $20 million companies, plenty, and I'll just kind of relax a little bit. I don't know if I'll feel differently once they graduate from high school and go to college. Maybe then I'll get re-inspired to do more, bigger, or whatever. I don't know. How many of you want to pass your business on to your family as a legacy? Great. All those are viable there. So the question comes up, what's held you back in the past from doing this? What's held you back in the past? I look at all the companies we've worked with over the years, and there's a pattern that starts to emerge. If you see it with 1 or 2 businesses, you're never sure if it's just you're reading something into it that might not exist. But when you start seeing it over and over again, what you discover is there's really a distinct pattern. And the way I put it is, there are 3 roadblocks that I see happening over and over again with a business owner. They get stalled out somewhere in level 2, whether it's early, middle, or advanced stage. For those people that get stalled out and don't reach to where they're trying to get to at level 3. And as I share with you what these 3 roadblocks are, I want you to ask the question, which of these roadblocks are curtailing your growth? The challenge is that if you can solve 2 out of the 3, it's not enough. You've got to deal with all 3. This is an all or nothing. 1 or 2 is necessary, but not sufficient. You need all 3 with that. And so my follow-up question is, as you hear that and you identify that maybe this roadblock or that roadblock you're dealing with right now, ask the follow-up, which is, what are you planning on doing about it? And if you're really daring, ask when. Someday? Tomorrow? Down the road? Eventually? Whose someday is now that you're going to do something about that? It's a big different way of looking at that. So here we go. First roadblock is isolation. Isolation. If you are doing your business without a good peer group of other business owners and advisors to help be there to give you perspective, a sounding board, accountability, and counsel, you're doing things the slow, risky, painful way of doing it. I have people come up to me all the time and say, David, loved your book. I've been following what you've been saying for years now. And I ask them, and I dig in a little bit about what they've been doing. And they say, oh, but I'm still doing it all by myself. But hear me on this. If you are building your business all by yourself, then you are not following the level 3 roadmap. I'm not saying you should take on financial partners. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that you need a peer group of other business owners and advisors who are going to help give you perspective on what you're trying to accomplish. We all do. I have it for myself in the different businesses that I'm building as well. We all need that. And early on, I guess I'll make a confession here. Early on, I was not able to do that. I wasn't. When I was in my early to mid-20s, I was a pig-headed know-it-all. And if I got through the bluster, you want to know what was beneath all that bluster? Was I was scared of telling anyone I didn't know what I was doing. In the early stages, I remember to get my first early customers for some of the businesses I started, I cold called hundreds of business owners. I was terrified all the time. And to admit to anybody else I didn't have it all under control was too scary for me. Gratefully, I can say that I've learned it's okay not to have all the answers now, but that was really a hard lesson for me. And it was interesting for me that, I guess I'll put it, the whole community was founded. Maui, as a community of business owners, was founded on this idea. I mean, none of us as advisors built our businesses by ourselves. I'll give an example. How many of you have heard of an itty-bitty company called Priceline.com? So one of the former Maui advisors, Jeff Hoffman, when he started that company, it wasn't just him. It was him plus 7 other people, one of whom was a technical genius. Jeff was just a business genius. He still is. It's been a great influence on my business life. He's really shared some ideas that have made a big difference for how we do the Maui companies. He asked one question 2.5 years ago when we were doing he did a half-day planning session for us as a team, and it changed the whole direction of the company. Can one question asked by someone from the outside make a difference of the whole direction of your company 2.5 years later? Everyone go like this. Absolutely. And none of you would be here today if it wasn't for that conversation, because the company would be in a totally different direction, and I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, and we might have just sold it or let it go. It was that pivotal what he asked. And, Jeff's business life, same way. He told me the story. I was having lunch with him, and his first business he ever got to work with was as an employee. And he said that he was having lunch one day with his manager, and his manager said, Jeff, you're never going to make it in the business world, in corporate America. He said, you're too impatient, you're too unfocused, and you're always trying to do a dozen things at once. Can you imagine that your mentor in the business world, the guy who's like your corporate manager, and Jeff said, he was just like rocked to the core. But about 2 weeks later, he was having lunch with a guy who owned several large businesses that he had cultivated a relationship with. And this guy said, Jeff, you're going to be successful because you're willing to play outside of the rules in a good way. He meant that is, you're willing to multitask, and you're willing to be impatient enough to have it now, to do it now. Essentially the same things the other person said, but the other perspective on it. Jeff built his first company. It was called CTI. It was a travel software business. He sold it to his number one competitor at the time was American Express Travel. American Express Travel bought his company, then closed it down. Why would they do that, you think? Because they were scared of the competition. It was much cheaper to compete by just buying him and closing it down. $20 million cash. Can you imagine that? No outside investors. Now, he got a little bit more ambitious for the next one. They went from 0 to 40 million in sales with Priceline in 2 years. They went from 40 to 200 million in sales in the next 2 years after that. Can you imagine? We think of us having scaling issues, right? We were talking about this, John. You might go from, what's maybe $3 million of business to $10 million of business, and that's going to cause lots of scaling issues. Can you imagine going from 40 to 200 million? They were hiring dozens of people every week to make that work in their company. He said it was kind of a point. I guess going back to it, though, was originally he needed that outside perspective. He's gone on to pay it forward and kind of been, for me, a great mentor along the way. And the secret, I guess I would share with you, is that no one who succeeds in a big way, no one does it alone. None of us. We all need people who come into our lives at the right time to help us with perspective, with sometimes it's just belief when we don't believe it ourselves. Sometimes it's with a fresh way of a model. Sometimes it's with a question that can jar you to think about things fresh. Sometimes it's with accountability. And quite frankly, other times it's by saying, hey, I already screwed up before and did it the wrong way. Here's the way that actually works, and save yourself the effort. This is the home that I started with when I launched my second business. Gorgeous. It's actually here in San Diego. This is the garage behind the house. It's in Mission Hills. It's not that far away from here. It was a converted garage in Mission Hills. I was paying $275 a month for the attic space, where, if you can imagine, I'm pretty tall, and I was living up in that space right up there, where I could walk in the center line that was 6'4". Some of you in this room couldn't even stand up at all in there. You'd be putting on your clothing by hunching over. I could be in the center beam, and I'd have to kind of narrow down further and further as I go left or right. That was the starting point. And if you were going to say, David, could you as an employee go 3.5 years later and buy a beautiful home overlooking the ocean in San Diego from that garage, I'd tell you you're crazy. But as a business owner, you can do that. And I put this one up here more for a couple points. At level 1, when I'm starting that business, if you were to say, David, you're going to have a couple weeks on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list in the same issue that Warren Buffett, now he's an article there. I just was on a one-sentence line that said a book that was a bestseller. But if you were to say at level 1, could I see that? There was no way. You don't need to see level 3 from where you're at. At level 1, all you need to do is to be able to see into early stage level 2 or maybe middle stage level 2. At middle stage level 2, you don't have to see level 3. All you have to do is be able to see yourself getting to where? Advanced stage level 2. And in advanced stage level 2, you are going to be able to see it. Certainly, if you can see it, that's even better. But how are you going to deal with that degree of isolation? Second roadblock. Let's jump ahead here. Fear. Nasty 4-letter word, but it's going to come up. I shared with you earlier today Blake, who did his business where he started off at $500,000 and he's now up to $2 million of annual sales. You know what? He's still as scared at $2 million of annual sales as he was at $500,000 of annual sales. Why? At $500,000, he's thinking, he's scared, will I ever be able to grow it? At $2 million of annual sales, 4 times the profit, what's he thinking? What's he scared about? Is it going to go away tomorrow? And he's trying to hire on new people for these different contracts that he's got. Scary. The point I'm sharing with you, there will never be a point in time in your business life that you won't have something to be afraid of. At level 1, your fears will be things that are small, and from level 3 seem, how could you laugh at them, right? But at level 1, they're very real. At level 3, you'll look at things and you'll still have things that will be scary to you. You don't have to get rid of the fear. You just have to get yourself to take action in the presence of the fear. And I'll put out there that I believe strongly that every business owner who succeeded in a big way, they've all learned to manage the fear. None of us get rid of it. There are still days that I think, oh my gosh, what happens if blank goes on? But can you get yourself to manage the fear so that you don't become immobilized by it? That's the key. When you reach that point on the cliff, can you still get yourself to take that step across? The nice thing is that the further along you get, the more you built up those muscles so that taking that step becomes easier the next time. Because dealing with fear is a habit, and the more consistently you take that step, the easier it is the next time you face it. Example, this is Kelly and Rob Fabros. Kelly and her husband Rob were police officers when we first met them, working for the LA Police Department. They work for the West Valley. It was funny, I found out that Kelly, she used to work helping out with vice part of that, and sting operations and stuff like that. And so they were both in the LAPD. When they quit, I know what the other police officer said when Kelly quit the police force to start her first business? What do you think her fellow officers said? Yeah, they said, she had a safe job, right? Well, she would describe it as a safe job in terms of she knew that she's going to have certain pay, certain benefits, right? She's got a strong union, right? I don't know if I would describe it that way. 77 grand in credit card debt. They said, "You'll be back, Kelly." This is how they were encouraging her. You'll be back. After she started going with that, she built up a very successful healthcare business. That's a level 3 business she still owns today. Still generates tens of thousands of dollars of passive residual income for herself. She built up a successful real estate investment company as well. And she's actually in the process right now. She just bought a middle stage level 2 business. She bought it. It was a mailing center. And her goal with that is to actually take what somebody else had as a satisfied level 2 business, middle stage level 2 business, and she plans to take that business and scale it by adding many, many locations before she eventually gets it to level 3 to sell the whole. And she'll do that over probably 7 to 12 years. She's ambitious, and I think she'll be able to do that. Great. So let's go back here. It's interesting to me is that since enough of the police officers saw her being successful with that, 2 other police officers that she know have left the force to actually start businesses of their own. Isn't that kind of funny? You're crazy. You're lucky. We always believed in you and knew you could do it. Jot that one down here. That's a little bit beyond here, but this afternoon we can do that. It's a little tongue-in-cheek there. Third one is hesitation. Third roadblock is hesitation. It's on the edge. And you know what? I get it. You have all this conflicting information. You're almost overwhelmed with it. Should you not? And I call it as the deer in the headlights. But what happens if you're standing in the middle of the road and the headlights are approaching and you're frozen? Yeah, you get hit. Write this down. Hesitation kills. Indecision kills. And I'm a big believer that you should gather the right pertinent data. But once you have the pertinent data, holding on to a decision is not really the best way to make the decision. Overthinking a decision is not the best way to make the decision. Gathering the right information at the right time is, and at a certain point you're going to have to make the decision to either step across or to do it a different way. But indecision kills at a certain point. And I'm a big believer that you can recover from a bad choice better than you can recover from being frozen. Who's ever tried to parallel park a car with manual steering before? I know that not many of them have it anymore, right? When the car is static, it's really hard to turn the wheel, almost impossible. But when you're moving, even if you're only moving a mile an hour, it's much easier to turn or to steer. So even if you're going the wrong direction, you can correct. But when you're frozen, it's hard. It's hard. You don't go anywhere. It's very effortful. 4 keys to deal with indecision. First, it's not about more information. It's about the right information at the right time. So sometimes if you feel yourself, because indecision is caused by overwhelm, who would agree? So sometimes I find business owners, we are thinking 5, 10, 20 steps down the road when we're faced with a decision here at step 3. When you're at step 3 and you need to get to step 4, don't struggle with step 22. Does that make sense? I've got a great client. Her name's Brandy. And she's got a television program, and she's got some really great capacities. Unfortunately, she's so smart that she oftentimes gets stalled by thinking too many steps ahead. Yes, you want to plan and know what's going on, but at a certain point when you find yourself stalled, just make the next choice to get around the next bend and make the decision from there. Number 2, if you find yourself stalled, break it down to concrete behavioral action steps. Something that you could see or hear yourself doing. Because you can do a behavior while you're scared. You can do a behavior when you're uncertain. It's hard to do a strategy, but a behavior, you can get yourself to do that. Number 3, upgrade your peer group. Character is contagious. When you're hanging around with other people that are the Chicken Littles of the world, that's contagious. You'll play smaller if you do that. if you're hanging around with other business owners that are ambitious, have integrity, that are trying to do good, great things in the world like you are, you know what? That's contagious as well. And then number 4, the right mentors or advisors. Because remember, at level 2, those things that seem so consuming to you from level 3 don't seem such a big deal. So having someone else who's been through it before, who can share with you, can sometimes jar you out of getting locked up that way. And it just is a really important thing to consider. All right. Another case study here. This is Dina. About I think it was like late 80s, early 90s, as deregulation stuff started happening with telecom, Dina started up a telecom company, and she was really good. Her main skill set, she was a phenomenal salesperson. And so she built up a telecom company that was literally generating millions of dollars of revenue. But then she got married to her husband, Mark, and decided that she wanted to raise a family. And her business was set up in such a way that her business was just her. I mean, she had some people who worked for her, but no Dina, no business. And so what she did was actually close the business down. I was talking with her, and we actually did an interview with her, and she shared, she said, David, because I didn't understand that level 3 roadmap that I've subsequently learned, she said, if I'd known then what I know now from Maui about creating a level 3 business, I could have sold it for millions. She just closed it down, which for her was the right decision, by the way, because her kids are more important to her than any of the millions could have been. But gosh, if she'd just done it differently, she could have had the business and all of her family as well. Or she could have sold the business to have it be worth more than just walking away from it. And the key thing is we all have blind spots, places that we can't see for ourselves because we're so locked into it. What are your blind spots costing you? I'll give you another example. This is Dean Hardmanson, one of our clients. And I always get a kick. Dean is like this kind of this hippie dentist, if you can imagine. He works in Texas. He's got his practice there. His comment was that he had been doing dental work for 30 years, had a thriving dental clinic, but was so burnt out about it. He kind of talked about having his hands in people's mouths. He said, if I have to put my hands in one more person's mouth, I'm going to go crazy. And when we first met him, he was basically saying, look, I'm just going to basically walk away from the practice, just shut it down. I had saved up enough along the way, he said, I could just retire. And I said, Dean, before you do that, wouldn't it make sense? And what he did was he took a little bit of time, basically 18 months, took his business, got it to the point where he could work 1 or 2 days per month, and he still owns it as a level 3 business. He still makes roughly the same income. He replaced himself with some other dental talent. He had to transition his expectations of his clients. He had to build out the systems and controls that made the office work when he wasn't there. But in essence, he was about to throw it all away because he was very frustrated and burned out. His practice now is probably worth, I don't know the number, maybe $500,000 to $750,000 is probably what someone would pay for it. Although he'd be crazy to sell it. Why? Because he'll make a lot more by owning it over the long term. But if he wanted to cash out, that's what he could. And he was going to walk away from it completely because he couldn't see it himself. Now, some of you are saying, David, I don't have blind spots. I don't know about you. I have blind spots. I need my mentors. I need my peer group of other business owners to help me see things that I can't see for myself. I shared with you the example for Jeff. So what are your blind spots causing you or costing you in the world? Because we all have them. We all have places we can't see. So who recognizes this guy? Yeah, Warren Buffett, arguably the world's greatest business owner. Not business doer, but business owner, right? Buying whole businesses now. He said, risk is not knowing what you're doing. In today's world, you hear all kinds of things like, oh, what you don't know can't hurt you. Well, that's actually not true. What you don't know not only can hurt you, but come back to haunt you years later. Who's discovered that the hard way? It's like this. Life will teach you a lesson at $1,000 that if you don't learn it at $1,000, life has a sense of humor, and what will it do? It'll present you with the opportunity to learn the same lesson at $10,000. And some of us get it then because we're frugal. I tend to be really dumb about that, so I don't get it at $10,000. What do I need to do? I get it at $100,000. And sometimes, I hate to even admit it, in the last 5 years, there's been a couple mistakes that I had to add another zero onto it before I finally got it. I hope. Quickly. Right? But my point being, you need to not look at your business just as how you did before. So I'm hoping that so far that you've got a different view on what your business's goal really should be. We'll get into